Welcome everyone to the
Recording in progress.
September 3rd, 2024 regular Board of Aldermen meeting. Would everybody please join with me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
Here.
Alderwoman Tice.
Here.
Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Alderwoman Sims. Alderman Lockmiller. Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderwoman Harder.
Here.
Alderman Erger.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, Kelly. Next up is approval or amendment of the agenda. Do we have any changes? Any objection to approving the same by acclamation? Seeing no objection, it will be so approved. Brings us down to citizen comments. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Now is the time to do so. You'll be given up to 3 minutes. All we ask is that you come to this podium, state your name and your address. Anyone online?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Let's drop down to item 5, public hearing. First up, and the only item, is a public hearing setting the 2024 ad valorem property tax rate. So with that, I will gavel open the public hearing for the setting the tax rate for 2024 or 2025? 2024, okay. We don't need a presentation on this because it's fairly straightforward, but does anybody have any questions? Or anybody in the public care to address the board on this particular matter? Okay. Any questions by the alderman? If not, we will close the public hearing and move on to mayor and alderman reports. First up is the mayor. I have no reports. Alderman Plufka.
Thank you. Public safety is set up a special meeting tomorrow night. We couldn't raise a quorum at our regular meeting, which was at the end of last month. We're going to be taking up both the fire training center. There's a contract for consideration by both the committee and then for the full board, as well as a traffic calming issue. Invite everybody to come. It'll be here at, help me out, 5:30. Thank you. I keep forgetting when this starts. So I'll write that down if nobody else will. 5:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Thank you.
All right, Alderwoman Tice.
Two things. Alderman Plufka will be busy tomorrow night because at 6:30 we will have a Ward 1 meeting in the community center. So we invite all Ward 1 residents to attend. And second, I made some comments last week that I understand were possibly misconstrued. So I just want to follow up. So I was talking about the police and fire pension. First of all, I made a mistake. An average $300,000 home would have about $150 going toward the police and fire pension. And I brought it up last week because we have a lot of opportunity to talk about great things that Brentwood does. And we don't often have the opportunity to get a report from PayPoint HR that talks about benefits and highlights that Brentwood puts aside more money toward the pension than any of our comparators, and that when our police and fire go to retire, they are paid a higher percentage than any of our comparators. Two comparators are close, but a lot of comparators are a lot lower in the percentage that folks are paid upon full retirement with 30 years, which in Brentwood is 80%. So I brought it up last week just to say, wow, our little 2-square-mile town has a great pension, and I don't want anyone to think I was trying to make some kind of different comment. I just wanted to highlight it because we had a report. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Sims.
No report.
Alderman Weggie.
Public Works next week has been canceled since we had one just a few days ago. So,
All right.
thank you.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Report.
Alderman Gould.
No report.
Alderman Erger.
No report.
And Alderwoman Harder.
No report.
Okay, we'll move on to city administrator report. We have one item, and that is the Brentwood Bound update. Craig, come on down.
Good evening, Craig Schlitter with Navigate Building Solutions. I'll be providing the Brentwood Bound update. So the only expenditures were soft costs. $25,750.60 was spent on legal and material testing fees. There were no changes in categories of funding. So I've got a short report.
Thank you. Any questions? Thanks,
Thank
Craig.
you.
Bring us down to the consent agenda. We did remove one item from the consent agenda, that was sent out last week. Any questions or requests to remove any of the existing or any of the other items under the consent agenda? Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to perfect or to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller. Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder.
Yes.
Alderman Erger.
Yes.
Motion carries by a vote of 8 to 0.
Great, thank you. And that brings us down to old business. We have 3 items. First up is Bill number 6509. We had a first read at the last meeting. Can we get a second read by title only, please?
Bill number 6509, second reading and consideration for adoption and ordinance amending chapter 225 of the Brentwood City Code relating to park rules.
Thank you. Can we get a Alderman Plufka?
I make a motion to perfect Bill 6509 into ordinance form.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder.
Yes.
Alderman Erger.
Yes.
Motion let's see. Yeah, by a vote of 8 to 0, bill will become ordinance number 5151.
Thank you. Brings us down to Bill number 6518. We also had a first read at the last meeting. Can we get a second read by title only, please?
Bill number 6518, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance amending chapter 605 of the Brentwood City Code relating to mobile food vendors.
Thank you. Chair would entertain a motion to perfect Bill number 6518 into ordinance form.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? A roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
Yes.
Alderwoman Tice.
Yes.
Alderman Weggie.
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderman Gould.
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder.
Yes.
Alderman Erger.
Yes.
By a vote of 8 to 0, bill will become ordinance number 5152.
All right, and that brings us down to the last item under old business, which is Bill number 6525.1. Can we get a second read by title only, please?
Mr. Mayor, bill number 6525 is pending, and staff has recommended that the board consider adopting by amending the bill by the text of 6525.
Okay, do we need a first and second on that?
A motion and a second would be in order.
Okay, can we get a motion to that effect, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. You don't know if you want to discuss, tell the board what the change is, or?
The change is to correct a reference in the bill which would have mandated a market study every 2 years. And this instead says that a market study will be conducted at the direction of the board as market forces and.
Okay, thank you. Can we get a first read by title only, please? Second read by title only, please.
Wait, voice vote.
Oh, we need a vote on that. I'm sorry. Thank you. All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now,
Second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance repealing ordinance number 5108 and establishing a revised compensation schedule for Brentwood employees and related matters and providing for the effective date of this ordinance.
okay. And it's, Eric, are you presenting on this?
Yes. Work. There we go. Slowly but surely. So we were asked to do a couple things, and so we put together a quick presentation on what has changed since our last meeting and from Ways and Means. And so the first thing is, when you look at the numbers are a little bit different, and there are 2 real big reasons for that. The first is when we went to Ways and Means, we were using the 3-year CPI index, which is 2.7%. At the board meeting last time, we were asked to use the 5-year, which is 3.94%. So obviously that increase in the CPI increased staff salaries. The other thing we did is that the overall budget continues to be refined. The finance department continues to look at it with department heads and city staff. And one of the things that was done was estimated revenue and the effects of the TIF being paid off this year were reevaluated, which led to an increase in revenue. So those were the 2 really big reasons of why things did. Other things like staff did take into consideration retirees. And so taking an estimate of what the new salary would be versus what the salary of the position of the person who's retiring. So things like that. And so this is kind of updated 3-year estimated budget. We added 2027 since that is our budget year. And you show what we're currently showing at the 60 percentile. We're still showing a net surplus through 2027 in both Fund 10 and Fund 50. We were asked to look at moving patrol officers to grade U17. And so staff did take a look at that and did run numbers. A couple things, it looks, the salary does increase, salary and benefits, somewhere between $74,000 and $85,000 a year. A lot of that reason is because that included police department retirees and affects the salary, so it seems like there's a jump one year, but not much of a jump the following year. Again, that is stuff that the HR department really took a hard look at to make sure that our models were accurate. It does create a deficit in 2027, which we'll show you in the next slide. And the last thing is when we talked to PayPoint HR, they did state that moving patrol officers to grade U17 does place them at the 70th percentile. And then showing kind of the 3-year estimate with the police officers, we showed that deficit in 2027 of about $70,000, a little over $70,000. Obviously, that does not impact the stormwater and park improvement fund. So that's the quick analysis. We're sure there's happy to answer questions, but obviously at that point, we're looking for the recommendation to move forward with the compensation study.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Yes, Alderman Plufka.
Thank you. I need to ask the acting city administrator a question.
Sure.
So on the presentation, you talked about the fact that they modeled in going forward to 24 to 27, the increased revenue in TIFs.
Yes.
Okay, but at least one of those TIFs hasn't even had a full year of us collecting it, correct?
Correct, but I know that, I'm going to look at Michelle to help me with this one, that we talked to our council to make sure to kind of give a good accurate indication of what they thought that revenue projection was going to be over the next 3 years.
And it's not possible that we made a $70,000 mistake on a $16 million of revenue? I mean, we're not talking about a huge deficit here, are we, in 27?
I'm going to let Michelle talk about the TIFs.
Okay.
We did present revenues to Ways and Means and had these discussions.
Okay.
And the recommendation was to remain conservative with the numbers, including taking in the TIF considerations on a conservative manner.
And I know you're new to the city of Brentwood, but in your experience, looking at our revenue experience from pretty much all taxing districts, how often is Brentwood in the lower end of that collection, and how often is Brentwood sort of maxing it out?
That's a fair question, and I can't necessarily speak to how often you may sit in those cycles. I think that the cycles have been slightly skewed when I look 3 to 5 years back based upon the deposit from St. Louis County that continues to still be in question. Yeah. Secondly, I do believe the holiday seasons are coming up, and it's my indication that when the holidays come and sales increase, your sharing percentage increases as well, and I don't know to what degree.
Fair
so,
sure. So let me ask you this. Using the EDST as an example,
yes.
It was predicted that it was going to raise $3.2 to $3.3 million. It has exceeded that in every year of its existence, has it not?
To my knowledge, that is correct.
And by more than $70,000, actually, in each instance.
To my knowledge, that is correct as well.
That's all the questions I had. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well,
I have a question related to order in which these motions need to be made. It seems to me that if we can't, if we don't pass the use of utilizing $1 million in economic development sales tax for the funding of any of this compensation study, we couldn't afford to do the 60th percentile as it is. So we probably should take that matter up first as a board. Is that correct?
That would be an accurate statement, yes.
Okay.
If I may, it is my opinion, and that's just legal opinion, that you don't have to do any of those things. The question of setting compensation is not, the bill establishes a range of pay and a range of steps, and the philosophy that led you to that is up to you all. It's not a question of, it's not integral to the bill. It's not necessary in terms of formally adopting that in any way for legal purposes. Now, if you want to do this for other purposes, that's fine. The question of using EDST funds is a budget decision to be made at the time the budget is adopted. That's when funds are appropriated and the funds of the city are allocated to their purposes each year. To adjust the scale yearly by CPI, there's already a provision says that as affordable, the city will look to do that. Notify EDS of the recommendation. It's not necessary to notify them of anything. They have made a recommendation. Again, you are free to accept or reject the recommendation or to act contrary to it. So it doesn't really matter. And to recommend employee compensation be retroactive is in the bill.
Okay, so we don't, it's not necessary then, from a legal standpoint, is what I'm hearing.
Technically, for the bill to be effective, none of those are required.
Okay,
But in order for this to be retroactive to January 1st, 2024, we have to find a way to fund that.
I
So we're
assume,
not talking about the budget in 2025, we're talking about,
I assume you will pass a budget amendment.
okay,
down the road.
okay. Well, I think it's your prerogative if you, as I hear the city attorney, you can go ahead and make that motion at this point, or you could wait to see what happens with the board on,
In years past, we've had to break things up into different motions and different steps. And if that's all assumed within the prerogative, or not the prerogative, the operations of budgeting and staff implementation, not necessarily policy, then I'm fine with keeping it based on policy and let operations be handled by staff.
okay? All right, anybody else? Okay. Then I think, do we need a second read on this? Is that where we are? Did we do this? Was that the
We've
second read?
had second reading.
That was the second read, okay.
Motion to perfect would be in order.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion to perfect Bill number 6525.1 into ordinance form.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? Alderman Plufka.
I would like to make a further motion to amend the compensation schedule to move the police patrol officers from grade U16 to U17.
Okay, do we have a second?
Oh, fuck.
Okay, motion, I think, dies for lack of second. So with that, any other discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
No.
Alderwoman Tice?
Yes.
Alderman Weggie?
Yes.
Alderwoman Sims?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderwoman Harder?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-1, Bill 6525.1 will become ordinance number 5153.
Thank you. Moves us down to new business. First up is Bill number 6526. Can we get a first read by title only, please?
Yes, but it's not opening. I don't know where it goes when I click on it. Where is it? Bill number 6526, first reading, an ordinance establishing the rate of property tax to be levied for the year 2024 for general municipal purposes, police and fire retirement fund, and public library purposes.
Okay, and we don't need to have a second read on this. We got enough time to do that. Is that right? Okay. So this is what the first, what the public hearing was about. Do we have any questions? If not, we will do the second read on this at the next meeting. And that brings us down to the last item under new business, and that is Bill number 6527. Can we get a first read by title only, please?
Bill number 6527, first reading, an ordinance approving a second amendment to the lease and services agreement between the city of Brentwood, Missouri, and the Brentwood Public Library.
Thank you. Yes,
I'll take a run at it.
thank you.
Essentially, this recognizes the fact that the Brentwood Public Library, in keeping with Missouri state law, is entering into construction contracts for it to construct its own facility, will be setting its own tax rate in years to forward and is essentially moving into greater independence and self-control over its affairs and separating that from the city in greater detail. And this amendment to the operation agreement between the two entities recognizes those facts.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? All right, we will take this up for a second read at the next meeting as well. That brings us down to citizen comments. Anybody in the public care to address the board? Once again, now is the time to do so. You'll be given up to 3 minutes. All we ask is that you come to the podium, state your name and your address. Anyone online?
No one online.
Okay. We have no need for a closed meeting tonight, so seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.